Thank you.
Hi, Amir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm very happy to take part in the auction and support a great museum.
Thank you.
Anyways, yeah, my name is Amir Fallah. I'm an artist based in Los Angeles. Uh, Originally born in Iran and immigrated to the U.S. around the age of 4.5, 5. So I've spent most of my life here, and so I'm just going to show a couple of old works and then kind of
Yeah.
work my way to the present. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been doing these veiled portraits of friends, acquaintances, sometimes strangers, um, and really trying to figure out a way to create a more honest portrait or take the history of portraiture as we know it and turn it on its head or deconstruct it, or expand it and manipulate it. And it really comes out of, one of the things that I've been thinking about while making this work is that what we really look like, our physical features, these superficial features that we get from our parents, don't really tell the public who we are, where we come from. They don't really describe us in a true sense. So I set off to try to create these paintings that take an alternative approach to what we've seen specifically in like Western uh, art history, where it's usually like a person, their likeness, whether they're male or female, young or old, attractive, not attractive, so on and so forth. So all these paintings start with a oops, hold on. There we go.
Yeah, I
All
do
these
that all the time.
paintings start with a visit to the subject's home where I do an informal interview with them, almost like an archaeological dig of their lives, where we go from room to room and talk about the different objects that they live with, that, everything from the quilt that their mother gave to them that belonged to their great grandmother, to a postcard on their refrigerator, to a tapestry hanging on their wall, and all these mundane everyday objects, which I kind of think of as the debris of life. These objects are all embedded with histories, memories, um, and symbolic narratives that really describe who the person is. So I'll do this interview with them as a way to get to know them, and then I'll create a still life of sorts with the subject at the center, and they're always veiled in some capacity with some sort of fabric or bed sheet, something to just cover their body. And a lot of times people think that they think that this veiling has to do with like Islam or veiling in the Middle East. And in a sense it does, but I'm more interested in a means to an end. How do you conceal someone's physical likeness? You cover their body. And the figures are generalized. Almost the body actually becomes almost like a generic shell that these objects and tapestries sit on top of, uh,
Yeah.
or are strewn kind of around them. So I've been making this work, and I continue to make this body of work. But about 2.5 years ago, right around, during the Trump presidency, my son was turning about 3.5, 4. I really started thinking about my own narrative and about my own identity and how I fit into the world, but also what it was going to be like to raise a multiracial kid in America.
Yeah.
And I think the political climate really made me think about some of these issues. And so I started creating these digital archives of images that I would collect from everywhere from, the British Museum's digital library, to the Library of Congress, to various museums, institutions, libraries that have these digital archives of images. And some of them would be advertising, album art, postcards, ancient manuscripts, movie posters. So for instance, in this painting, the cheetah or the leopard is from a scientific illustration from the early 1900s. The man holding the earth is from, I think, like a 16th century engraving. The cartoonish pig barnyard scene is from a skateboard that I owned from the age of 12. And the image on the far left side is the poster from Metropolis. And so every painting starts with a line of text that functions as a parable, a life lesson, a warning for my son. So this painting is called Sentiment Without Action is the Ruin of the Soul. The large painting in this image is called, oh God, what is this painting called? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Doesn't matter. We can look it up and put
You
Bella
could
can look
just
it up and put it in the
make
chat.
something up.
Oh, it's called,
Yeah.
it's called Science is the Antidote, Superstition is the Disease. And it's
yeah.
a large painting. It's, I believe it's 8 by 20 feet. And this was in a show that I had in September. These images are all from a show that I had in September at Shulam Nazarian Gallery.
I wish I saw that show.
I know.
And,
we did a virtual.
Yeah, so these paintings are created, the text informs the images, and the images are kind of juxtaposed in this, first as a digital collage, which is then, manually painted, and they create these narratives and these paintings within paintings. So one big aspect of this is that I have a background in graphic design and book and publication layout, and in book design and magazine design and newspaper design, there's this invisible grid that everything is put on to create a sense of hierarchy. So a newspaper will have the headline at the top, then a main image, then the image credit below it, and then the main article below that. And it's a structure where you can have a lot of information that is still easy to digest. And so I started laying these paintings out in the same way, where I would have, a cartoon image from my son's children's books next to like an old photograph, next to a tarot card, next to like an illustration from a magazine. And each piece would have its own space, but they would also be in dialogue with one another. This painting is called You Can Only Be Tall Because Someone Else is on Their Knees, which is a Toni Morrison quote. This painting's called They Will Smile to Your Face. This is quite large. It's about 8 by 6 feet.
I love this work.
Me too.
Thanks. And these are all acrylic on canvas. This is a fairly new one. The wound is the place where light enters you.
Is that Curious George appropriation?
Yeah, it's Curious George, Rorschach. The top is Egon Schiele. And all sorts of other images. And so, for instance, in this painting, I found this image of the skeleton with this like spear. And then I paired it with the text. And then I just happened in this archive of thousands of images, I had this Egon Schiele drawing that I just liked, that I had saved 2 years ago, where he had all these like spears getting shot at him. So a lot of times I'll find these images that have nothing to do with one another, and I'll start creating these loose narratives around them. And of course, these cops from a Curious George book, where they're in this like chaotic fervor, they're dumping trash everywhere and destroying things, obviously talking about, I guess, what's happening today and yesterday. It's been happening for decades and decades. So anyway, I take all these very different images and try to make sense of them and create these hybrid paintings that talk about high and low, new and old, east and west. And for me, they're a reflection of my own cultural heritage, which is very diverse. I grew up in Iran. I lived in 4 countries before the age of 7, speak several languages. And I have a wide array of interests, from Dutch and Flemish painting, from the golden age to graphic design and illustration. So all of that information is kind of embedded into these paintings.
Yeah,
These are
and of
three
course
large.
the tondos are so deeply rooted to me in Dutch and Flemish painting tradition.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the tondos in a second, but I just wanted to show this install shot
Okay,
for
sorry, I'll let you do
sense
your thing.
scale. Um, so so I definitely wanted to show this. So this is the current project at the ICA that Ali invited me to do. I think we first started talking about this in August,
I know.
maybe September. But it was while my show at Shulman Nazarian was up. COVID was exploding again. There was mass protests all over the country. And all these topics that were in my paintings that I've been thinking about for several years had kind of come to this fever pitch. And when when we started talking about something on the facade of the museum, I really started to think about how can I change the paintings in a way where it could communicate in a better way with the general public. So in the previous work, like in this, I don't know if you guys can see the text, it's kind of woven into these moments of tapestry and they're kind of camouflage. I specifically made them so that the text don't jump out. They don't hit you upside the head. But something in the public realm, I wanted the text to be pushed to the forefront because of how advertising works, how graffiti works. So the text is kind of written in this like haphazard way, almost like somebody spray painting a wall or creating a protest sign in a hurry. And the text comes from the paintings that was in the show in LA. So they will smile to your face. The animals of the world exist for their own reasons. A borderless world. Remember, my child, nowhere is safe, and so on and so forth. And just like the paintings, these images, these disparate images are, I'm trying to create these loose narratives between the images and the texts. And then below it are these two large tondos. One's called Cowgirl, the other one's called Cowboy. And these tondos slowly rotate. So as you're standing in front of these paintings and looking at this mural, these kind of these tondos are with these voids at the center are rotating and kind of collapsing on themselves, which for me really represented kind of the mood of the world at this moment where, everything's upside down, nothing makes sense, everything's kind of falling on itself. And it's like, one day COVID numbers are looking good, the next day it's like there's a variant, you can't keep up with the cop shootings. It's just constant chaos. And so the billboard started as a 3 by 16 foot painting, which is painted on 2 separate canvases. So this is an actual painting, but it's vinyl on the facade. So this is the painting that's in the auction. It's called Cowboy. And with these botanical paintings, like Ali mentioned, there's a lot of reference to Dutch and Flemish painting, but also the plant life that is in all these tondos. They come from a very diverse background. So you'll have a Dutch tulip next to an African orchid, next to a tropical flower found in the rainforest. And for me, the plants are a placeholder for people and really a symbol for, the melting pot that America is. And with all these different cultures, races, different needs and wants, so like an orchid and a cactus have very different needs, to survive and thrive, just like, politically and culturally, it seems like people have different wants and needs, based on every state and every, county. And then mixed into this kind of chaotic entanglement of these flowers are trapped these images taken from the archives that I've been making. So this cowboy comes from a Valentine's Day card from the turn of the century. Obviously, a cowboy is this iconic American symbol. For me, it represents America. And I picked this one specifically because it's cute and fuzzy and lovable, but he also has guns and is like, you're not sure if he's going to shoot you, which I feel like is a perfect symbol for our country. It's like, we're free and we invite everybody in, but if you misbehave, we will bomb the crap out of your country and shoot you and kill you. So there's this like mixture of love and hate, this freedom and anxiety, which for me kind of represents how I constantly feel, like this great conflict. And like the image on the right is from a Vietnamese protest poster from I think like the 70s.
This is like, that was a great detail contrast. Well
Yeah.
curated.
And then this is like one of my favorite moments in both of these paintings. I'm also thinking quite a bit about art history and how I'm referencing these different modes of history. And even though my painting practice is it's a maximalist approach, one of my favorite artists ever is somebody like Frank Stella. And I take a lot of inspiration from his work. So this is my tiny Frank Stella bootleg from one of my favorite series of his, kind of hidden as an Easter egg in the painting. And then this is a print edition that I did with Louis Buell in Detroit. I believe it's like an 8 or 9 color silk screen on this like really beautiful oval deckled edged.
The deckled edge is amazing in the oval.
Truly.
You'll have to,
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
And you can't tell in the photo, but like the camera is in this rich gloss black. And I believe there's 1 or 2 of these that are in the auction.
There's 2 of them in the auction, and I just unpacked them yesterday. I will admit that I also am in possession of one of these, and the colors and the surface are incredibly vibrant. It's a really special artwork.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Okay. No, Amir, as always, I love talking to you. I will say, having the Tondo, I know one of them sold just as we opened the show. Having the other one in the auction is a very, very big deal. That's a real, to me, kind of masterwork that you've made, and a real sort of index to a significant history certainly for the ICA, I think for the Bay Area, and for your work, I hope, as you kind of pushed your practice in some ways by having that be the first one to rotate and made it so quickly as part of the facade. So thank you so much. Forever, you're going to have a lot more to do with the ICA. So good night. Thank you. Go take care of your son. All right. Bye.